Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dagmai Babi podcast. Today, I'm here with Tadas. This episode is one of my favorites. I've been looking forward to this for so long, and today I have him on my show, and this is going to be very exciting, very educational. He has been my inspiration when I started my Flutter journey as well, and today I got the chance to talk to him, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Welcome to the show, Tadas.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. So I give a tiny introduction about you. So I would love it if you introduce yourself to me and to the community here.
My name is Tadas. I started my career as a senior software engineer, working for low-level software. So getting really into the little bits and bytes of like working with C. And I was basically doing a lot of development on truck software, so very security heavy. Like I kind of bored of that, started doing YouTube and learning Flutter, and I quit my job to go full-time on that. After that, I went to a new job that was more DevRel. I had only quit for like 3 months just because I don't know. We'll get into that a little bit later, why I quit, and then went right back to a job. But then I worked at DevRel for a company called Agora for 3 years, and then as of like 3 or 4 months ago now, I quit that job to try to build a company full-time, an education company based around Flutter. So it's called Hungrimind. And that's kind of the gist of it, but I'm sure we'll get into each little part of that.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to take it way back to your childhood and everything. So first of all, where were you born?
So I was born in Lithuania, and then I moved to the United States when I was 6 years old. So yeah, I grew up there for the first 6 years of my life, and then we moved to the Chicagoland area.
What kind of kid were you? Were you creative? Were you artistic? Were you into sports?
So I played basketball. I was definitely into sports a lot of the time. My memory of when I was younger is kind of like not great. When I was in high school, I got into a little accident on a motorcycle with my dad, and I had a fractured skull because of that. And I don't know if this is actually related to like not really being able to remember much of my past or what, but like, yeah, I don't really remember much of when I was younger. Like a lot of the memories are just what people tell me and what I see in photos. But from what my parents tell me and from what I kind of remember is that like, yeah, I was definitely very energetic and had a lot of, energy. My parents said I was like a really good baby. I never cried or anything. Like my dad, he was building our house in Lithuania when I was born. And he said like he would just bring me to work and I would just sleep all day in the back of the car or whatever, just watching him work. So apparently I was a really good baby. Then when we moved to the United States, it was pretty rough the first few years. So that, like I said, I was around 6 years old then. And we moved to the United States. And we came here. We had like one second cousin that we kind of knew here, but my parents didn't know English. Neither of them knew English. I obviously was 6 years old, so I didn't know English. And we kind of moved here because they won the green card. We came to the United States, and we were pretty much kind of left behind by that cousin. So we were in a completely new country with not really understanding anything. I had to start American school, like going to regular school when I was... Yeah, I think that's first grade. So I started first grade here. It was my first like going to school, and I just didn't understand what anybody was talking about. There was no translator to Lithuanian in that school. It was definitely quite a scary experience there. So my mom said like I came home every day like crying. But yeah, the nice thing is that I was still young, so I don't really remember that. But thankful to them for them to like helping me guide to who I am today. So that's kind of the most I remember. And then, yeah, as I was younger, then my parents, they worked hard for like 3 to 5 years. And we moved to a nicer city and I went to a nicer school. And then at that point I knew English and yeah, things got a lot better in like middle school and high school times for me. So those times I remember that's when I used to just play a bunch of sports, went outside all day. And yeah, that's kind of what I got from my childhood.
Is there anyone in your family that's like, tech-oriented, a programmer or a software engineer?
No, not really anybody anywhere. So first, I don't really have any family in the United States, so it's really just me and my parents. And in terms of being tech-oriented, yeah, my dad's a construction worker, was a construction worker, and now he's a truck driver. and my mom does like accounting. So neither of them are very good with tech. Like I got to help them with their, setting up their phones and their printers and all that stuff. So that was the first one that kind of got into that whole world.
How did you find out about programming? What was your first experience like? How did you discover it?
Mine was quite a traditional route. I just went to a university close to where I lived. It was it's a state university, so I got a lot of funding, and it was pretty cheap for what it was. I got a lot of help from the government and everything, so I ended up only paying a few $1,000s a year the first few years, which is, in the rest of the world they pay probably less, but here in the U.S. that's pretty good. So I went there. I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. I knew I wanted to do engineering, just because I've always been oriented towards that, like curious about how things work. So I went into like this intro to engineering course where they covered all the different engineerings, and I found a friend that I'm still friends with to this day, and he was going into civil engineering, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I'm like, yeah, screw it. Let's go into civil engineering. Civil engineering is the one where they handle like how buildings are constructed, and like he dealt with like concrete and all those sorts of things, like basically how to make the modern world livable. So that's what I started with, and then I just like I don't know, it was boring. Like I didn't really like it too much, and then I saw what other engineering things were happening, and then I kind of just picked computer engineering, and then I don't know. I think I picked it along the route that I like to play with computers. I had built my own computer back in high school, and civil engineering didn't sound that fun, and then computer engineering sounded like the next most fun thing to try. I tried it, and then it just actually was really bad at computer engineering in college. I took two, or maybe I was good at computer engineering, but I took two CS classes. One of them was my worst like grade I got in college, like the whole time. And that was data structures and algorithms. I thought like I really didn't like CS, and I was going to focus mostly on just the the engineering part. So where you're actually designing circuits and everything. My dream was actually to work at a process at Intel and like help design their processors, because it's just, I didn't like the actual coding part. But then, so I like that's how I kind of got into it. And then the typical route, like I got my first job because of an internship that I had my senior year, and that's how I got into the whole career part.
What was your first programming language?
C.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what they taught in the class, so that's what I used. And then I think actually the class that was my worst class, I think they taught C++. So that one was the one that I really didn't like. So that was my first language. And then my first job was also C and C++. So I lived in that world for a long time.
Why didn't you like it?
So I didn't like C++ just because I was bad at it. Like it's just, it was my worst grade. Like it was the only C I got in college, like throughout the whole time. And I was like a 69.5% that got rounded up to a C. There was no other course that I did as bad at, like even close to as bad on. I just thought like, I don't know, things didn't click for some reason when I was learning C++. The intro course that was just regular C, it was a very, intro thing. So that one I didn't mind. But that one was just like variables and what's a Boolean and, creating a function. So that was not too bad. But yeah, just, I don't know. I think it was just, I was bad and just got discouraged early on.
Did you build anything interesting back then, with C or C++?
During the college time? No, not really. I just, like I said, I took those two courses that like one of them did really bad in, and just whatever the assignments were, I just kind of just went by. I think that was most of college. I wasn't really that ambitious early on in college. I think only at the end when I realized like, I'm going to have to start working full time. That's when things started clicking a little bit. And at that point, I remember I had an internship. I had like a free unpaid internship where I was building Android applications, and there was like, I didn't build anything cool. Like it was just, I spent the whole summer just kind of learning and I built like a Flappy Bird little simulator thing, but it was breaking all the time. It wasn't good. It's just nothing. I never built anything like substantial. Nothing that's like worth really remembering.
Right. What did you use back then to build Android apps or games?
So that one was it was an internship where it was like a school funded internship because I had good grades, and so they like gave me an internship the first year, and it was just at the school, and it was pretty much just learning. Like I wasn't actually building a product for the school. I was just they kind of gave me like a little bone to play with for the summer and to kind of put on my resume.
What was the language or the framework?
It was just Java. It was just old school Java.
Do you like Java right now, by the way?
I think that was the last time I wrote it. So I don't know. I haven't kept up with like all the developments, but at that point, like my apps didn't work with Java, so I didn't like it at that point.
It's still running on 3 billion devices.
Yeah.
To get to know you a little bit more, like, do you have any other hobbies, outside of coding? What do you do?
I have a ton. Probably like I have a problem where I try to limit how many hobbies I can have, because I've been through so many, and like I try not to spend too much time. Like I guess some of the biggest ones, like I go to the gym every day. Just that's, I don't know if that's necessarily a hobby. I sometimes enjoy it. Mostly I do it just for the health benefits. I also like I bought a house 3 years ago now, and like completely remodeled the whole house, like new siding, new bathroom, new tiling. Everything, basically the whole brand new house everywhere. Then 2 years ago, I built like a camper van. And like, so I like when I was younger, I liked playing around with cars. And this time I bought a Toyota Sienna.
Wow. I did not expect any of this. It's so fun.
Yeah. I have a lot, like too many things. I played around with cars when I was younger, and then I built a camper van, and it's like very, not like those ones you see on YouTube. It's not like super fancy. It's just a really old minivan that I just put a bed in, and there's actually a fridge in there and everything. So it's cool. It works, but it's not like those Instagram vans. So that's why you probably don't see me posting anywhere about it. Then I have like a 3D printer behind me. I have like, just way too many hobbies. I try to limit them to, keep time focus on like actually coding, getting stuff done.
It's cool. I think you embrace your own creativity, I guess. It's pretty cool. And you're in a good health and fit. So yeah.
Yeah. For now, hopefully for now and for a long time. But yeah, I try to, a lot of it is just, I mean, like all of this kind of stems from just wanting like to get the most out of life, I guess. I really, my lowest points in life had been like when I was spending the most time scrolling on my phone and just like watching YouTube. Like there's, especially at this age, like I still don't have kids yet. So like there's just so much time and so much more I could be doing. So it's all kind of based on just trying to get the most out of life while I can.
Are you married? And also, how old are you?
So I'm 28. I got married last year. So it's about to be like 1 year anniversary in 3 days.
Congrats.
So yeah, and I was just dating, her name's Anna, and I've been dating her for like 6 years now.
What's your view on marriage? Any advices for other married couples and, the overall experience of it?
So I don't know. Giving advice like only 1 year in might be a little early on marriage. Like we're going to have to see, after 10 or 20 years, but I mean, my whole like view on relationships, I guess in general, was just I had like one quality that I looked for in the person that I was going to spend like the rest of my life with, and that's just the ability to be like aware of like the desire to like improve, I guess, the desire to get the most out of life. I had a few relationships before that, like it was like stagnant. Like there was no growth that seemed to happen from the relationship. I feel like, a growth together is my like biggest value that I look for in the other person. Yeah. I mean, I've known Anna for over a like a decade now, and like she's from like the minute I saw her, like it's I knew I liked her, and then 6 years ago, so for first 4 years, we were just like kind of friends, and then yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. Congrats. It sounds really beautiful.
Yeah.
Are you in any way spiritual? What are your beliefs or faith in that regards? Tell me some things about that.
So like I get the like short answer is I don't really know. When I grew up Catholic, I went to we used to go to church with my parents all the time. Kind of drifted away from that, like towards my like that at around high school, and now like I'm genuinely curious for the last like few years about what I believe spiritually. So yeah, I don't really know. I'm curious, and I'm like digging into it and trying to learn more. But I have, yeah, I guess I don't know is the only answer I got for that.
This part is also very exciting for me. I would really love to know how you got to Flutter. Like, your first experience, what led to you discovering Flutter and, liking it and embracing it, and then all of that. So can you tell me about that?
Like I said, my first job that I got was in low-level C development, working on truck software. That job was like amazing. Like it was the best first job I could probably ask for. Like I got a great boss that was super helpful. Like I said, in college, I thought I didn't like programming at all. So I went from not liking programming to getting this opportunity where I was only doing programming. And I got in, I didn't really know what I was doing. It was quite scary, but I had a really supportive and good boss for my internship period where I just kind of bombarded him with questions day in and day out. And I learned how to like work with C, how like truck software works, how you have like, I was working with like the actual coding of the operating system on the devices, which was like scary, but like kind of cool. So like all that was very cool for the first like 2 or 3 years. Like it was massive learning. And then I got comfortable, I think. So what happens in big companies like this, not necessarily all big companies, this was a very specific case where it's like you're dealing with trucks and like people are driving these trucks, and like if something breaks, that's a big problem. So it's very security, lots of safety regulations and everything. Every little line of code had to go through requirements design and then requirements review, where you get a room of like 10 people to make sure you have to write a line of like this bit will do X and Y or something like that. Like you have to define exactly what like it needs to be done, and you have to have people review and agree upon your wording. And then you go into like this design phase. You have the design review where you're designing the thing, and then you go in the coding phase. You have the coding review, and then you have the testing phase, and you have the test review, and then like it goes to a whole other team for testing. So to change like 2 lines of code sometimes took a week or more. Sometimes even more, like if there's a very critical part that you're working on, like just changing a freaking letter could take like a week or 2. So it was just very, like once I got comfortable with the software, it was just very, boring, I guess. Like it's just the only word I could think of. Like I was comfortable with what I was doing, and like I was just spending a lot of time going through the process of little things. So then, when I would get home in the evening, I would just try to get something to get back that like stimulating process of actually creating things. I've always kind of wanted to, like I said, at the end of college, I was like, oh crap, like I'm going to be leaving this university. Like I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And I also always wanted to like build something that like build a business, I guess, build something that like helps people. So then I started just building a whole bunch of apps. I first started with Ionic just because that's I ran into that one. Or no, actually I first started with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and I tried to build a social network, which was like insane as my first web project.
It's the ambitious one for your age back then. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. I had no idea. I remember the exact issue I ran into. I ran into like a multi-threading issue dealing with like DM messages. And then I took a break from them. Like, yeah, I think I bit off a little more than I could chew here. So then I looked into app development because for some reason I thought like app development was going to be easier than web development. Like I think I remembered maybe that I built that Android Flappy Bird app and like maybe something clicked that like this might be easier. Then I got into app development and I wanted to build for both iOS and Android. And the solution at like the most commonly used solution at the time, or maybe it just made sense because I was working with like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It was called Ionic. And you could build basically Ionic. What it did was you built the website and it got rendered in like an application view. It got rendered in a web view for that application. So I built like I don't remember. I don't think I built anything that cool with it. And then at some point I was like, I reached like some limitation of the web view and I wanted to have a native application. And at that point, React Native and Flutter was still in beta, so it was not even released. But like React Native was the only option that's like released, and then there was Flutter that was like the new like thing. And then I personally just didn't like Facebook at the time. I still don't really like Facebook like as the company. So then I just went with Google and Flutter. So that's how I started. And then I built apps, and I mean one thing led to another. I just stuck with it throughout all these years.
Okay. So wait, you started Flutter back when it was still in beta?
Yep.
Wow, that's actually a risky take though.
Yeah, definitely was risky. It was like 6 months maybe before it got released to alpha. But like my goal was to build projects, and I tested some things out with Flutter and like it worked. So I don't know, maybe I wasn't thinking too far ahead in the future of how risky it was. I just wanted to build something and it worked out in the long term.
You also started a YouTube channel and it's basically centered on Flutter. So tell me what the thought process was for that.
The reason I started it was because there was, at the moment when I started, like I was still trying to build something on the side, and it was kind of twofold reason for why I started. First, I was thinking it's kind of, how do I get like the first users for whatever I build? I didn't really know about ads, like how to market well or anything like that. I thought like, what if I was building an app just in public? I showed the whole process of building it, and you can see like the first few videos were me building a book club app. So that was like one of the ways I started. I think the real reason I started was because there was just not much content at the time about Flutter. So it was just a real pain to get even basic things working. So I thought I would help out with that. I could build like, I think my first videos are like talking about like file structure and like some of the more simple things that I was learning at the time, and creating videos about those, and hopefully like to make it a little bit easier for the next person. So it was kind of like a two-way start, where I think at first I started it to try to help other people, but then quickly wanted to build a project and product with it. And then, I think just one thing led to another. And then I thought I'd just keep improving my videos, and then just was doing all sorts of topics just to hopefully help some people out.
I personally started Flutter like, I think 4 years ago during the quarantine. And I used to binge watch all your videos, to be honest. It's how I learned Flutter. And one thing led to another. I also work, my job, one of the jobs I do is like building Flutter apps. And yeah, I really love it. I think it's one of the best things I've ever encountered. What I really like about it though, it's like, I don't really worry much about the programming aspect of things. I can just build things, I'm focused on the actual idea and, like how good it looks and stuff like that. So it really is a good prototyping technology as well. So yeah, for me, I really loved it. And your videos back then, I feel like that was my main source because that's how I learned Flutter, It was just only like 3 or 2 channels, I guess. So I was just binge watching all the content, building along. There was the book app that you were talking about, and I thought that was pretty interesting as well. And yeah, so I would love to thank you for that. That was one of the major things that I've come across, and it really helped a lot in my life. So thank you for that. So I guess now it's been 5 years on your YouTube journey. How did that go? How's it going? Do you enjoy it being a content creator out there?
It's very cool to hear, and I've heard other people say that things, but I look back at I know the book club series helped some people. I just look back at the type of videos I was making. I was like, I wish I could have made better videos. I just cringe a little bit watching my own, but yeah, I'm happy they did help people.
I think it's been 5 years for you since you started YouTube, and do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy making content out there? Do you like it? Do you like being a content creator or a YouTuber? And do you even label yourself as a YouTuber?
I label myself as a YouTuber. I think when I quit my job the first time, that's when I probably would have labeled myself a YouTuber. But the thing that's really hard about YouTube is it's just so. I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it actually is, and how at least little financial reward there is for it. When I quit my job, the only way to really do it full time, unless you're the biggest channels you can think, like Fireship, the Primogen and Theo, those three probably can make a living off of YouTube, but almost most other creators, you really cannot even get close. The only way you can do it was sponsorships. So to be a YouTuber, I would have had to basically just deal with sponsorships all the time. And that's the only way to actually make it sustainable. And I was doing that, and it worked for the few months that I was there, but I don't think I wanted to be doing that for a long time. So that's why I joined the DevRel company, because DevRel is you get paid a salary to make YouTube videos, kind of. So that was very cool. That's why I jumped the ship so fast. In terms of content though, I love making videos. I think that's the people that really do well out there are the people that actually enjoy the craft of making videos. I think for me, the reason I've kind of slowed down a bit is because I've wanted to add more value faster. I went through a whole phase of learning how to edit videos a little bit better, which was really fun. And there was making entertainment videos, videos more entertaining so that people would watch it more. That was really fun for me to do, but it didn't feel fulfilling, I think, because it was just at that point, before I was making very strict tutorials, I was teaching people how to actually code, how they could get outputs from what they're, every time they watch my video, they could get something from it. And then I was getting into more entertainment where entertainment is still something, it has value in the world. But for me, it was I was spending all this time editing the video to make it fun. And I had fun, but what was the end result is, yeah, I'm sure there is some end result. There is some positive ways you could look at it, but I wanted to spend my time adding more value and teaching more, I think. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit why I cut back on making videos. But I do also see myself making videos for probably, I don't know, the rest of my life too, just doing more from a fun place instead of trying to be a YouTuber.
You discovered Flutter and you started using it back when it was still in beta. And yeah, it's so crazy to me that you decided to do that back then, because for me, I thought it was still risky. Even now when people are asking me if they should learn Flutter and stuff, I'm still there's this side of me that's maybe hold back a bit, It could go wrong or something dramatic could happen to it. And there's still that tiny fear, but you going all in for it back in beta is pretty impressive. So I guess you've seen Flutter grow into what it is right now, because there had been a bunch of major changes throughout the years. And I guess if you recall some, that would be awesome. You could walk us through some of those changes and some of the main, milestones that you've encountered while using Flutter, and also in that process, you can tell me, what you love and what you hate about Flutter.
My bet on Flutter wasn't as scary as it sounds like back in the day, because it wasn't, when I first started learning it, it wasn't necessarily that I was betting my future and like what I will work on in Flutter. I was still working on my day job. I was just trying to build a fun side project with Flutter. When I quit my job, like I wasn't necessarily trying to, be a Flutter developer. I was trying to be like a YouTuber at that point. So like it's still what my career wasn't like. Yeah, well, it was like, it was kind of built on Flutter, but like I saw that the audience for Flutter was there at the moment, and I wasn't really betting that Flutter was a great technology. Like I could make, if Flutter fell off, like I can make videos on something else. That's kind of how I saw it when I quit it to be a YouTuber. And then I finally got a Flutter job, and then at that point it was in alpha, not an alpha. It was like a 1 or 2.0 at that point. So then, like, I don't know, I had a job in Flutter, so I was like, yeah, let's just write it, see where this goes. So it wasn't as big of a bet in my opinion. Like it didn't feel as big of a bet that early on, but yeah, looking back, I guess it definitely was.
What do you love and hate about Flutter so far, throughout the years?
The biggest thing that caught me like right from the beginning was just like how fun it is to write. I think that's something that like never disappeared. I think that's like the big reason why it's so successful. There's only like 2 times where I've actually genuinely enjoyed working with a framework.
Do you think Flutter is fun because, you're not obsessed with type safety and all sorts of things like that? Or, related things? You're just focused on actually building the UI and functionality?
Yeah, I think mostly because it gets a lot of things out of the way to let you build those products, build like your actual like output. But I don't know. I guess being like a content creator and stuff, like I did obsess about like type safety and like diving into like those little things too. So probably a little mix of both. But I think, yeah, initially, like the thing I really liked about it is like, it felt like it's not easy at all. Like I definitely struggle with like some of the big topics like state management, like architecture and all those things. Like I struggled with it at the beginning for a long, long time. But like it felt easier. I felt more confident, I think, writing applications in Flutter than I did with other ones. Like I knew I always had the debugging tools to figure out what's going wrong. I knew I could like, run, like step through the code slowly. So I think a little bit of confidence and just, getting the end product was a lot more fun. And I was like, one of the only 2 times like I've felt that feeling. Like the other one is like, if you ever curious about getting into web development a little bit more, like the Astro framework is the second time like I felt that. So that one's like really fun too. But yeah, I think like the key updates that I remember from Flutter, like the biggest one by far for me was just the updating to null safety, because it broke all the previous code in all my videos. So that one was like very dramatic for me.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, it broke a bunch of my projects too.
Every video that I made up until then, like all the code I show on the screen was just wrong. And I'm like, all right, I'll start fresh. But I mean, it was a good change in the end.
One of the main things is you don't like state management in Flutter, I guess. But what's your preferred way of state management?
In general, I've had this feeling that like I want to rely on as little packages as possible. I think a lot of them, no shade to the package, like they're great. They help a lot of people. But anytime you add a package, now you are relying on someone else for some of your code. If possible, some of the times it makes sense, like for sure it makes sense. Sometimes the packages have been there for a long time. They've been used by big companies. They're supported by big companies. Like you're just wasting time if you don't use it. But other times, like as much as I can, I try to use less and less packages. That's been before. I thought when it comes to state management, I have a lot of videos on my channel about state management. Most of that was because I was in an exploring phase of it. I was just trying out all of the state management. I wanted to see what it is. I was still learning about what it means. And I think up until maybe like 2 years ago, I thought you kind of need a state management package. I thought like that's one of those packages that like there's not really a way around it. But like, yeah, I mean, there is, and it's not that bad. It's just, you can use the Flutter related tooling, you use value notifier, and you have a nice architecture with MEVM. It's funny because when we like, so me and Robert, like we're building the like Hungrimind company, and we're building a course on there, and we built it with like MEVM and like value notifier, which is all credit, most of the credit to like him, like teaching me about that. So we built it that way before the Flutter came out with like the documentation. So it was kind of a big bet. We thought for us to recommend something like this, but we knew people were kind of wanting something like this. And then Flutter released their docs that basically, I don't know, it's almost like a one-to-one to what we have, except like a little different. So yeah, it's really, for me, it comes down to having proper state management in your app is not that hard. It adds like, I feel like if you're like using Block, our solution, or like even Flutter solution, not even ours, just go. If you look at their documentation, like I don't even think it adds more boilerplate than Block. Some other packages like VerBpod and that, it's a little bit more boilerplate, but then you get rid of all the negatives associated to bringing in a package. So I personally, yeah, I like to. What I'm doing moving forward is I create a really good structure of like a way that I do things, and just like remove all the thinking about state management, because I think that clouded my mind for like years, probably, like thinking, what's the best state management? What should I use? I'll use something that I know works. I've seen work on big projects. I've seen companies use this approach, like Flutter recommends it. I'm just going to go all in on this, create like snippets and like code and help myself build things faster using this way. So that's kind of my thinking. I think a lot of my thinking in the past like few years has shifted all the way away from like worrying about the tooling and like just building things faster and better.
I completely agree with that. Yeah. I thought I was, I don't know, maybe dumb that I'm not understanding all these state management packages. I've tried them. I've used them in a bunch of projects, but I'm like, it takes the fun out of Flutter, I guess, and it's pretty annoying. So like most of my side projects, I try to avoid these packages. Even the Skull Archive app in your website, the Flutter of the Year website, I did not use any state management, and that app is being used like a lot by a lot of people. And, I completely agree. Yeah, I second that very much. Like for a new beginner, this is a community question. And for a new beginner, like what do you advise people about Flutter? Like how to learn it, how to navigate it, what kind of projects to build. Also, what kind of tools would help a lot, or what kind of packages would help. So just general advice on Flutter.
I mean, first, so like we're kind of selling a product for helping people to learn Flutter. So that's like that's one place. But in terms of just if you're doing it yourself, I think like the best way is just go out and like try to build something. Like I would say like go through like the basic fundamentals that you need. I guess it depends on where you're starting. Also, like if you're starting brand new, like you shouldn't be learning Flutter. Like if you're new to programming, you should not be touching Flutter at all. You should be learning. You can learn Dart, you can learn JavaScript, you can learn some other root level language, and then once you have a foundation of what programming is as a concept, then you can jump into Flutter. And then that at that time, I would look at like the way I like learn anything new. I try to like take in the few basics that like I can understand. I can start understanding how this thing works, and then just start and try to build something. I think that's like the best way to learn. I thought back to like, how did I learn first? It was like literally I just started building a project and started sharing online, and like that's the only step I really took. And I think that's like the only really way to actually learn something deeply. That's kind of why we built our course and everything. It's all focused on actually writing the code and building it. Like we have like an editor browser where you write the code, like, because we don't, you can watch videos all day, you can watch tutorials all day, but until you're actually building a thing, I don't think you really learn it as good as you would by building it. So yeah, just go out and build. In terms of tooling, what would I use? I would try, if you're doing it for fun, I would try not using any packages. Just see where that gets you. Try to learn some way without using any packages. If you're really into building something specific that you want to like sell or something, I would still say, like, once you choose a state management package, for example, you get really locked into it. So I would maybe spend some time not choosing a state management package and learning a good way to do without. But if you do like everything else, I would, what my approach is, just use whatever resources you have, like just any other package, any other thing, just get something working. And then later on, as you mature with the product, then you can take out the dependencies one by one and replace it with things that you have.
All right. That's wonderful. Wonderful advice. All right. So let's jump to, your other jobs or activities, I guess. So you're a Google Developers expert, and, tell me about that. Like, what does that entail? Like, what kind of roles did you have, and how did you get into that?
Honestly, it's like I am a Google Developer expert, but I haven't done anything for like related to it directly in probably like a year or two. The reason I became a Google Developer expert was, well, first, it's kind of like a program just to acknowledge, like, Google's acknowledgement that you are an expert in whatever technology it is. So I'm a developer expert in Google, in Dart and Flutter. So what that means, what do you get when you're a Google GDE? You get access to like a monthly meeting that they have, which I haven't joined in over a year because I don't really like meetings that much. I'd rather spend the time like building something. So I'm not a really good GDE, but I still am. So like the reason I got it was because I think you have to go through like a little interview process at the beginning, so where they check that like you understand the technology and everything. And when I came into it, like, I've been making YouTube videos for a while now, and they're like, oh, like the person interviewing me they're like, oh, I thought you already were a GDE. Like, I'm surprised to see you in here. So basically, it's just an acknowledgement that you understand, you are an expert in the field, and that like you are continuing to help grow the field, I guess. So I've been making Flutter videos and everything, so that's why I stay a GDE, even though I don't participate in the meetings. And then the other little perk is they send you some Flutter swag sometimes, so that's kind of nice. All
right. So is it after that you joined as a dev relations at Agora, or the Navistar one?
So Navistar was my first job right out of college. I became a GDE. I don't remember, actually. I might have been I think it was after I joined Agora. So I joined Agora before I became a GDE, and then while I was at Agora, I became a GDE too.
Talk to me about that role, developer relations, I guess. Well, what kind of tasks and what kind of activities did you do?
Yeah, so developer relations was my like dream role. The reason I quit my job was because like I wanted something more like that I was building more stimulating kind of, and I wanted to be a YouTuber full time and try my role at that. I didn't know what that developer relations was even a field when I quit. So I kind of went into it not really expecting anything. And then someone reached out about a developer relations at a different company than the one I joined. And I looked into what this means. And then I looked into it, and they say basically it can mean a lot of things, but like what I was getting from this role was that like I can basically be a YouTuber, but they pay me for it, which I thought was like ridiculous. I didn't think people paid for this type of stuff. So yeah, I went through the interview process. Developer relations is a little bit more than that. Like, it was the dream job. Like, it is exactly what I wanted to, and I hoped it would be. It's basically you are the connection piece between the engineering and the users. So a lot of it is creating. It could be creating content, creating YouTube videos or blog posts to teach about the product, so the user can have an easier time. But the other side is taking the user feedback and making sure engineering makes that like works and makes progress on those things. Then the other things is like making tooling to make it easier for users, like anything related to make the product easier for users, like documentation, the back end console of how they're using it. Like if I have a tough time there, like make sure that feedback gets to the engineering team. So it's a role where it was all over the place, but that's exactly what I feel like I thrive in, and I really enjoyed. So it was the best.
There is this fork of Flutter, Flock. You've probably heard of it. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I have heard of Flock. I don't really. I feel like it would be very difficult to have a successful fork of Flutter. Like there's a whole team at Google working on these things. Like there's smart engineers that I trust that they are working for the best for what Flutter needs. And I think it's a lot of the judgment that goes towards them. Well, I think some of the things are justified, like for sure. But I think a lot of it is like, can you imagine having like a team of even 10, 20, I don't know how many people are on the Flutter team, but like, and then having millions of people just coming at you with like, do this. And then you have like, how many tickets do they have in GitHub? Like 50,000 or something, trying to go through all of those and deciding which one is the most important thing to spend effort on, where like how to grow. Like it's a very difficult challenge. And I think, although like I wish them the best, like with the Flock and everything, but like if it gets, I feel like I could see them getting into a lot of the difficulties that the Flutter team gets into. What if it scales up a lot? I'm more of a, I hope I'm wrong. Like let's see what happens. Like I'm open to a solution like that becoming of a real solution that many people use. But I'm more on the team now where my whole focus is on building good products. Flutter allows me to build good products. Even if they don't release another update for the next 2 years, what they have right now is good enough for most of the things that I build. And I'm just going to keep building with that until I find something that maybe I like more. And like another point I'm kind of like shifted a lot about is I've seen a lot of people defend Flutter or whatever technology is way too much. Like for me, I really like Flutter and I will keep using Flutter as long as I like it. But if like tomorrow a new framework comes out that I like more than Flutter, that helps me build apps faster, like I'm not tied to it. For even our whole business is built like on Astro because it needs to have web, and Flutter doesn't support web in the way that we need it to support web. So like we built products on like completely different technologies, just because it wasn't the right tool. So I'm more so of like, the tool that you use should help you achieve whatever goals you have. It doesn't really matter which one succeeds. Whichever one's the best, that's the one I'll use probably.
Agreed. That's a really good take. So this one is about Hungrimind, and it's your new company. I think I've seen the announcement video a year ago. I think that's when you actually announced it. And tell me everything about it. Like what were you thinking when you planned on starting this? And I remember when you actually started Hungrimind, you had another project running. I think it was a fitness app, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember there was some other project that you were running. And for me, it was just out of the blue. There was this video you uploaded and it was just Hungrimind. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening right now. So, talk to me about everything, like what was the motivation? What's the plan?
With Hungrimind, I think the initial plan was that, like kind of related to the whole null safety thing. Like I made a video, I spent a ton of effort creating a video, and then and then null safety came through and everything became outdated. And I found this very like annoying, and like even not even to do with outdating stuff. Like let's say I make a video about state management, right? I think like 3 years ago, I made like a video of like the best state management packages. I wish I could go back to that video. Like the things I've learned, I would be like, number one would be not using a state management package. Like that would be the number one answer. I think that's kind of what I had. But I think I had like set state where I would now change it to like value notifier. You can't go back on videos and change it, or like maybe you can, but then it's just a lot of like you lose all the video. You have to re-upload it, right? So the initial thought about it was to try to. I got into like more writing, and I was like, what if I just wrote really good blogs, and then those could be updated. And then like I wanted to set up like a journey for people. And when I was making videos as well, it was like I was making just random videos. Like it wasn't like a linear progression of like how you would learn. It was just what I would think would do well in the algorithm. I know like a lot of the things, probably the best performing videos would be like top 5 state management package. Like that doesn't really teach you much. So like how can I set up like a linear approach to make it easy for people to learn and actually have something that can be updated and have value? At first I was thinking like something like a blog maybe. And I got a few things out there, but then like the obvious kind of answer this whole time was like a course. But I didn't really like courses. Like I didn't really like how most courses are. So it was like we tried to do something different. At the beginning, we tried to make like written courses, right? But the very first one was just kind of like an ebook almost for Flutter, and like people enjoyed it, but like it wasn't anything groundbreaking, right? It was just interesting, I guess. Then I thought of like, what if we added some interactivity into the course and made it like a little bit better, because you can play with it and you can understand things like visually as well. Like you can see it and you can play with it, and maybe that would be higher value for people. And that worked. That people enjoy that more, but it still wasn't anything that felt like groundbreaking. And yeah, so I like. The latest version was kind of like a mix of like videos and written text, where I try to make it like very like easy to update, but still have a little bit of both kind of. And that was a lot more well received. And then this most recent version, so this is now like version 4 almost of this course, and I plan to like keep improving it. Like there's no reason to stop. I'm just going to keep making it better and see where it ends up being like a year from now. But now like after the latest version, I kind of stopped and like thought back to how I learned. And I remember I learned like kind of what we talked about a bunch is I learned by building things. So what can I add to this course that would make it better than having videos and better than like any other course that you have online? And that's why like the name of the course, while at first it was like a little cringy to put that as our name, because maybe, I don't know, it must have been a little cringy because maybe we didn't believe that it was the best Flutter course. But by putting that name there as the best Flutter course, like that, we gave ourselves a North Star of where we want to go. And it became very clear, like, are we done with this course yet? Is it the best? Like, no? All right, we'll keep working. So then now we released something that we believe in. Like, I mean, it's been pretty successful. Like a lot of people have been enjoying it. We believe we built something that's pretty special, where you can actually write the code in the course. It's like you learn on the left, and aside we go into theory, so you get the deep understanding, and then on the right you actually get to write the code. And we have a free demo you can try out and everything. So that's kind of, it went from like trying to make it education in a more scalable way, to kind of what it became now, whereas it's that, but also like education in a more deeper way. I think a more deeper and scalable way. And yeah, that's kind of what led to it. I don't really know. I think it was just maybe that like so I was working at Agora at that time, and I started around like 2 years into it. And maybe that like the 2 year mark is when I get a little bored of like the day job. I'm thinking, and that's when I got to start digging into the side projects. So I think maybe it was something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I really enjoyed that job. At Agora, it was something I could have seen myself work at for the rest of my life. But I took the bet like 4 months ago to just go full time on this and try to see what can happen because still young, still don't have kids. And like, I don't want to live with a regret that I didn't try something. But yeah, it was definitely was the best job. But so far this is fun. Just, it's a lot more stressful.
What does hungry mind mean? Does it actually mean like hunger?
The original idea behind it was like hungry mind is like something like a hunger for learning, like curiosity, curious about things, hunger for learning, and kind of a brain that like needs more. And yeah, maybe, I mean, I don't know. I never really thought much deeper than that, but now it kind of makes sense. Like we were talking about my story, how like I'd be working at a job and then I'd get a little bit bored there and I'd start fiddling with something on the side. So I think that's kind of relates to the feeling I had when I named it that. Something about having a craving for learning.
All right. So like for me, my experience of Hungry Mind was basically this. You've announced it on your YouTube channel a year ago. And I'm like, okay, something is happening. I'm not aware of what this is exactly. So, it's been going on behind the scenes. And then recently you started the Flutter of the Year project thingy, and I submitted my project, and turns out it became number one, and you congratulated me and everything. And in fact, I think that's how we actually started talking and everything. And you gave me access to the course and the whole platform. So there was the first version I saw, the one with the videos and the text. And then there was the recent one with the whole compiler and editor. And yeah, like I texted you on Twitter. I'm like, hey, dude, how on earth did you build this? It's so impressive. And yeah, like it's actually one of the best things I've ever seen. And I think it's going to be big. I really think it's going to be big because it's got everything. And you learn the best way there is, which is like to actually build through things. And for me, by the way, I've been looking for ways to actually compile Flutter apps into, through the web and everything, and actually practice or, build on the way. And this just blew me away. So yeah, if it's something that you can talk about, please to talk about this, because it's really impressive as like, the engineering aspect of it is pretty impressive.
So yeah, a lot of the technical things were built by Robert and everything. So the technical aspects of it, we're actually not doing anything too crazy under the hood. Well, it's kind of crazy, but like for the most part, we're just compiling a web project and then streaming it to the end user. So like, for the whole backend section is like a Kubernetes cluster with like Docker containers and all that. I'm sure Robert would love to talk about that stuff. But so what happens there is we have an instance of Flutter running, and like as you write the code in the browser, it gets streamed to the backend, and then you get returned like the output. So there, it's not that crazy. It's pretty much just a Flutter app running on a server, and then you're just streaming the output and the inputs. While that sounds easy, like the actual implementation of that is insane. But yeah, now we have it working, and like now we're just iterating on making that experience better and better. So yeah.
Awesome. That's pretty exciting. And thank you for giving me the course. I would really like to thank you. I've been learning a lot from it, and it's been a good experience. And I guess what's next for Hungry Mind? What are you doing right now? What are you planning ahead?
Well, first, you won the Flutter of the Year. We want to do something even bigger next year for Flutter of the Year. But like during the whole time while we were trying to run the Flutter of the Year project, I was also building the whole backend part of Hungrimind, like the whole UI and everything associated to that. So next year we're hoping to do something even bigger. We talked in like the chat about all the different ideas of how to make this really cool, and I'm really excited to do that. So yeah, just the least I could do. It was awesome to see your community and everybody show out for that. So huge congrats, and it was really cool to see, and a cool app, by the way. So in terms of what's next for Hungrimind, right now we are very deep into building out the back end section. So the course isn't done right now. It's like on like a massive sale because we have 2 really big sections that we're going to be adding at least. So yeah, this week and next week we're working, like we're hoping to wrap up the back end section. And it's like we're trying to make it really nice from like the end user experience. So this includes updates to our back end thing where you'll be able to, well, I don't want to fully commit to this, but like I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to like see an actual like the database entries. So you can write the code here. You'll not only see the output of your application, but you also see what the database looks like at that point of the application. So that's the next part that we're trying to build in. I think we have a pretty good POC now. We just got to fully build out the rest of the application. So that's the biggest part. In terms of like the further thing is, this is the hardest thing about trying to build a company. Like we have something that's working. Like a lot of people are enjoying the course, right? But like, what do we do after we finish it? Well, obviously, I think it'll probably never really be like finished. I think we're gonna I know we're going to keep improving and like adding new things as we learn. So it'll never really be finished, but like we're going to have a lot of time allocated once these new sections are done. And what do we do with that time? Like that makes the most sense. I don't really know. Is the real answer, but like our goal as a company is to help people build Flutter apps. Not maybe in the future we'll do other things is like not just Flutter, but for now it's just to help people build Flutter apps. We did it with this first course, which is helping people go from not knowing Flutter to being able to build their own Flutter apps. And I think the next connection is helping those people that finish the course, how to help them build how to build apps faster. So now that we got people from like 0 to 1, like where they don't know how to build Flutter apps to knowing how to build Flutter apps, now what can we do in order to help them build things faster? So that's I think for now that's kind of where we're leaning for the next focus, and we have a few things we're already doing around that. And then the other big part is like our whole goal is to make a really, really good product and course and have a business. Like me and Robert now are both full-time here, and like we still haven't made enough money to pay both of our expenses. So like our number one goal is to be able to like make enough money to do that. We're close. Hopefully we'll get there in the next month or two, which I believe we will. But like we're close. And once that happens, like we really are trying to shift focus on providing as much free value as we can as well. We want to, keep growing the business as it is. Like we want to really provide as much impact to the world that we can. And that's like for the people that can't afford it, we want there to be like the best Flutter course that there is. And for the people that can't, we want there to be enough resources for you to learn on your own. And like the best, I guess the goal around there would be to have like the best free resources, because you can still learn things on your own right now. Our course ideally makes it a lot faster. And we want to make these free resources that are the best out there as well. So that's kind of two things we've been thinking about it lately. And we started on the whole free resource section. We want to like that one's also, I want to build something in a scalable way that we can do like have a lot of impact. So we like the past like 2-3 weeks, maybe like a month, we build like a tool that generates videos from like a markdown file. So the latest, there's like, if you check the Hungrimind YouTube, like every platform now, actually YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, what other ones are there? Yeah, I don't know. Threads, like we have a Hungrimind account on everywhere. And on all those platforms, we're going to try to release a ton of really high quality videos, and see how high quality we can make them and how fast we can get them out. So yeah, those are just a few things we're thinking about currently. We got the first like 3 videos out using the tool, and now we want to keep improving the tool and keep improving the video output that we get. So I'm really excited about that. And then as well as anything else we do.
Awesome. This is super exciting. I can't wait to see how big this gets. And yeah, you're a gift for the Flutter community, and it's awesome that you're very passionate about, educating people and sharing all these resources and building, really wonderful technology and tools. Thank you for it again. You're pretty amazing. All right, so I guess we're almost at the end. So, while still on the topic of tech, what do you think about AI, and how often do you use it?
So I love AI. I think it's one of my favorite things that's come out since like I started development for sure. Probably I would say I wasn't around when the internet first came out, but I'm assuming like internet and AI would be like pretty closely matched for me. But like at the same time, you have to be very careful, because it like, while it's amazing, it can also be like very bad, I think. And like for someone that's experienced in the technology, I think it's really good, but it can also be bad for us. For example, like I'm talking about this app that we built for like creating videos, right? I spent like the first 2 days, I got AI to write like, I would say the first 80%, where they kind of tell you like the first 80%, like the last 20% of an app takes like 80% of the time. Well, with AI, like the first 80% took like 1 day, and this last 20% took the rest of the 4 weeks. So it's not 80 and 20 anymore. It's like AI could do like what you think is 99% of the app, and then you spend so much headaches and so many worries dealing with the 1%, because it made some decisions that just weren't the right decisions. So like the way I work with AI as someone like with experience, I would say you want to be the one defining like the architecture, the interfaces, and like all that stuff. And then for sure use it whenever for the more tedious things like JSON parsing and all those things. And like, even if you get stuck, like use it for a section of code. But I get really worried about AI, especially for like newer developers, because I see even myself like almost forgetting how to do some of these things just because like AI could do it. And like for some of these things, like fine, like I don't think like JSON parsing, like I don't even care. Like I would say beginners you might not even ever need to learn it, just because like AI does it. Like maybe understand like what it's actually doing, but like you don't need to remember the syntax for JSON parsing. AI will do it for you just fine. But like, I think these newer tools, especially with like the agents, and I use a Cursor IDE, and it has this thing called Composer, where you just ask it to do something and it goes into multiple files and like tries to make things work. I think for beginners, that one's like very scary, because like you think you get a good app out of there, and then things break, and like you have to go to basically step one to fix it. And it's very hard to understand like why it made what choices and what's the wrong choice and what's the right choice. So yeah, I would say like as a beginner, I would definitely be very wary about using it. I would use it. I think if I was to start again, here's what I would do. I would have AI, but I would not let it write almost any of the code, unless it's something very like I said, like JSON parsing. That's just a tedious thing you don't really care about. But what I would do is I would use AI a ton to get ideas and to learn from it from the side. I would like ask it, be like, what are my options for doing state management? For example, what are my options for doing state management in Flutter? What does the Flutter team recommend for doing state management? Like, what does MEVM even mean? What is a view model? Like, you dig into these things, and you have a really very easy to use search engine, and then you end up writing the code. That's probably how I would do it. And then that way it can be super powerful. So I think like, yeah, with all things, AI can be like massively powerful, but like it can also be like not very good if you don't use it right.
AI is pretty scary, I guess, in some ways. I have a term for it. I have this thing that I call AI depression. It's where you contemplate about AI so much that you don't even want to get started with programming or anything related to programming. And I've had like a bunch of people come at and, be actually seriously sad and depressed about it. And they're like, hey, Dagam, with AI progressing this fast, should I actually, care enough to learn to program, all of that stuff. And I would actually like to know your take on this. Like, would you advise people to start programming, maybe even Flutter or anything related, at the current speed that AI is progressing?
I want to preface this with like, I don't really know is like the true answer, but here's like my feelings about it. I have a feeling it's not going to get that much better in terms of coding. I think that's mostly two parts. Like one, like it's very good right now. Like I think people that say that it's not good, like maybe, but I feel like it increases like using it right, it increases my speed of development like a ton. So I think it's very good right now. Do I think it's going to reach a point where it's architecting your applications and doing that whole part? Maybe it could definitely be the case. But I feel like if I'm looking 5 years from now, let's say AI gets really good, the way I think I see it, there's still going to be someone having to have the idea and the approach of how to build it. Like that's what quote unquote programming might become. I don't see a way where like there's just the AI is building things by itself and like, you don't need to do anything. That's like someone's still like, even if it's built into GitHub, even if it's built into GitHub issues, you need to ask it what it should do and how it should do it. So my kind of thought is that even if I hope it gets better, like I hope it can handle bigger tasks. Like if I can tell it to, change this view, take out the logic and put it into a view model, like that it can handle those things. I hope it can do that, but like you still need to have the underlying knowledge behind it. And I think programming, while it's definitely partly like actually writing the code, right? Like that's part of it, but I don't think that's like the core part of it. The core part of programming is solving issues and like building products. So right now, and for like, in my opinion, probably the foreseeable future, there will always be someone needing to solve these problems and figure out how to do it, like find the problems and solve the issues and how to do it. And as long as like that's something that you're signed up for, like I think that part of programming will never go away. Like you always understanding how things work and how to build things this way, it was never going to be like a negative for like the future. Cause like you're going to at least have a way of thinking about how technology works and what you need in order to solve these problems. So I think I'm not necessarily worried about the whole field of programming going away. I think it's just worst case scenario, the definition of what programming is changes. And like maybe it already has changed as like close to as much as it might. Like, yeah, I spend a lot of time talking with AI. That's not what I would have do 2 or 3 years ago, right? So the programming has already changed. But it's still, the fundamental thing is like understanding the systems and solving the problems. So,
what is that one good advice or that life actually taught you that you would like to advise me and, everyone listening? What's that beautiful golden advice that you got?
I read a ton about like all the self-development books and everything. Like the one thing that I think is the most core part of almost everything is to just like do things, focus on like others instead of yourself. I think whenever I've fallen into too much of like focusing about my own goals and my own metrics and my own like things, like whether it's, I think it happened with like YouTube subscribers first. Like I really wanted to have more YouTube subscribers instead of thinking about what impact I want to have for those subscribers, right? For I went way too deep into like trying to make sure my editing was like in a way that kept people sticking around instead of focusing on how much value can I provide to the person who's watching this video and how can I help them. I think there was probably a point where, my last job, I was paid very well. Like it was very nice to see, a steady paycheck coming in. But then I left that job because I wanted to focus on how I can help people even more than I was doing there. And then like this last example, I was like, we're building this business. And I really want to, have a successful business. I want to have something that I can work on for a long time. But then I got too much into that part and I had to step back and think back like, no, the reason I left, the reason I wanted to do this whole thing is because I wanted to leave an impact on this world and wanted to help others. So I think, that's the biggest piece of advice that I kind of had. It's just focusing on others instead of yourself. Like, what do I want to leave in this world? Do I want to be reach my own, a lot of times you have your own goals and how you can help other people, they align. But I think like the core value that I'm trying to chase is helping others. And hopefully that leads to myself seeing a lot of success. But I think focusing on your own success leads you to a pretty bad place.
This has been such a wonderful conversation for me. I learned so much. And since I admire you big time. And this conversation is pretty, I guess, it's a dream come true. I've never seen this day come. So I'm super happy that you decided to come on this podcast and, talk and experience and advise us and share your knowledge and everything. I wish you all the good things in life. And, as a last, thought, if there is anything that you would like to share, talk about, ask, anything you're curious about, go for it. This is your stage.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. I feel like I'm just a regular guy that made some YouTube videos, but I'm happy it had a positive impact on people. And I hope to keep doing it, but I don't feel like anything too special. In terms of the last things, I don't know. I've been spending the past 3 months just heads down, working on Hungrimind. It's been clouding my mind. So that's kind of my only focus right now. So I want to hopefully keep making it better and better. And like you said, we're starting to share free content everywhere. So that's the couple big things that I have. I guess maybe one curiosity I have of you, from everything I talked about, what would you recommend, or what do you have, if you have any opinions for what the next step for us should be, or what things we should implement or something like that?
Putting me on the spot, huh? All right. Well, I haven't built anything web related with Flutter, so I would really like to learn that. I think that would be pretty cool. Also desktop related, to be honest, and I'm very curious about it. So anything related to these two things, I think it would be pretty amazing.
So what kind of things about web do you think are the most biggest curiosities you have? I was planning to have a whole either video or I don't know, something around the difference between Flutter web and other web things. I think that would be massive for people. But yeah, curious.
I was primarily using Next.js for most of my life. I didn't enjoy it, to be honest. It was just, it's something that was really powerful back in the day. So I thought it was really cool. I moved on to Svelte, and Svelte is just, it's super perfect. And I just love how everything, worked, and the state flow, everything was just so simple and very straightforward. So I'm just going to use an example. That's called Archive application. So I've wanted to make a web version of it because, a lot of people have been asking for it. And, I wanted to do it using Flutter. So obviously the first thing I did was just use the same mobile app code that I already built out and polished and everything. And then, compile it and adjust some things for the web, and it was just a really bad experience. Just doing that was just a bad experience. Everything was just so bad. And I don't know, I guess I was going through that with a mobile developer's mindset. I'm not sure. But my experience with the web was awful. So I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to, write it from scratch using Svelte. So that's exactly what I did. So a good, very straightforward tutorial or lesson, or, how I should actually be building the stuff like this, that'd be good.
It's funny. I feel like so many people I talk about have a very similar experience with web, where like Next.js is just the biggest tool. So like that's what you use. But like I'm the same as you. I didn't like it. Like it's not fun. I tried all the other ones, and at that point, Svelte was also my favorite. I was on the same boat as you. Svelte. I mean, I think it's still amazing. It's definitely one of my favorites. But then I like. That moment that I had very similar to Flutter came again with Astro, where Astro I think is just incredible. And like Astro, you have to use a separate framework too. So my like ideal stack right now is like Astro and Svelte components. So it's that's what I've been using a lot. It's great in terms of Flutter Web. I think I agree. I think that's like a big missing piece. The nice thing about like desktop apps is, I think if you tried out your application with desktop and whatever app you have for Android, if you tried it with desktop, I think you'd see that one goes a lot smoother because desktop is like pretty good. I think just desktop's pretty underrated with Flutter. Like it works really nice with like very minimal changes, but Flutter is definitely Flutter Web is definitely a little bit more, but there is a lot of things you can do to make it pretty close. But yeah, there's always going to be a little difference, especially when it comes to like SEO, especially if it's like a content heavy site. Then that's why we didn't use Flutter, because Hungrimind is just like it's content. Flutter is definitely not the right answer for that.
Like, what was the actual problem with Flutter? For your website, for the Hungrimind website, I figured it would be built by Flutter for some reason. So like, what was the main issue with that?
I mean, one of the biggest things is search engine optimization. Like SEO is just we want to have like free content on there as well that like leads people to the website, and we want to rank high on Google. So like when you search for best Flutter course, we want it to be the number one option on there. So just by using Flutter, you are automatically at a disadvantage for that. The other thing is just like rendering and writing text is not that nice in Flutter, where like that's what the web is built on, like showing, being able to read text, making sure it scrolls nice, all those things, being able to highlight the text properly. Because if for example, if you don't use, I think the web has like a selectable text, you have to change your code to use selectable text instead of just regular text, so people can't just highlight the stuff and copy paste it. Doing things like parsing Markdown in your Flutter application to like show code blocks in blogs, like that's really difficult to do. Just a bunch of little things surrounding text and rendering text and typing text and that. So that's like it would. Like it's possible to do it with it's possible to build Hungrimind with Flutter, but it would have been a lot more work, and like we would have been like I said, it's kind of you want to use a tool that makes the job easy. With Flutter, we would have been fighting the tool. With Astro, it was smooth.
There was a time when everyone wanted Skull Archive for different operating systems. So for like Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, and iOS and Android, and building it for desktop was much more straightforward. It just works. I think that's my favorite part about it. And I really don't understand why it just doesn't work on the web. And I'm not really into, the SEO of things and all sorts of things, but the experience was just pretty bad. I really hope you have like a course someday in the future about this, which will make my life super easier. Yeah. All right. And I think we're completely done. This has been so wonderful. It's been such a learning experience for me. Thank you so much for being patient and for coming on the show and for sharing everything. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.